Okay, hello, and welcome to the Assorted Kinds Independent Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Kevin, the host for today's episode, and this episode is about our fourth film. It's called The Fantastic Folly of Future Jess. So many F's, and yet it's not rated R. Today, I'll bring a lot of jokes tonight, folks. Today we're joined by the writer and director of the film, Chris Laughter. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hello.
That's cool. Sorry, there's an airplane landing. Next to Chris is Nicole.
Hi, Kevin.
Castillo.
That was done so well.
Yeah, we'll edit that, and even so, it'll sound bad. The production designer did the production design, which was very messy. I don't know. Were you doing that on purpose? Because it was really messy. I don't know if.
Of course, I did that on purpose.
And
it's hard to make a room look messy and good at the same time.
That's true.
Strategic mess.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fine line. And next we have Jeremy Brilliant, the DP.
Hello.
He directed the photography. And finally we have David Gallardo.
Hey.
Frequent podcast host,
yes,
and a fellow Ask director writer. Can you give a quick one-line synopsis of what happens in this film?
Logline.
Okay, so what would you do if you could go back in time and stop yourself from making a horrible act or decision that you made in your past? And so the film basically is a exploration of that through time travel.
Nice.
And it kind of sits within the parameters of our Assorted Kinds filmmaking world, which is single location, two people talking.
Which I'm so jealous of because I love time travel movies, and my first thing is like, oh, we can't do that because it's too hard, it's too sci-fi, whatever, don't even bother trying to write it, and look at you nailed it. And it's one of my favorites as a result. Where did you get this idea from?
Okay, so Nicole and I were traveling in Japan.
I thought you were going to say time traveling. Sorry.
Time traveling in Japan.
I was actually time traveling, and I had a thought. We were traveling in Japan, and I went to Japan with an intent to write a scene that I've been thinking about that had to do with... So, when you go from here to Japan, you go...
West.
You go the furthest into the future possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but when we're traveling west in America, say from New York to LA, we're going back in time, right? So I wanted to write this scene about someone who didn't get that. They're like stuck in the idea, because the first time we went to Japan, I was stuck in the idea, like, wait a minute, okay, we're like the furthest in the future we can get. This is wild, bro. But you cross that line that's like the start over line. Okay, so we're hanging out in Japan. We really don't have any time to like sit and write because we're doing so many things, so that didn't really happen. But I woke up from a dream, and I had this dream where I was talking to myself from a piece of broccoli.
Okay.
So I came home, and I just started writing, kind of based off those two things mashed together.
Well, so the broccoli thing, was that so specific in a dream? It wasn't just like, let me figure out how to...
Yeah, it was a dream.
Wow.
Like you were literally the broccoli talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Just trying to give myself advice of something.
Okay. Why do you feel the broccoli manifested itself in your dream, by the way? That's cute. That's a very specific.
Eat your vegetables, kids, That's all. Just, hey, don't forget to eat your vegetables.
Is that why it was like an Asian broccoli with chopsticks, as opposed to a sautéed broccoli or steamed broccoli?
I think so.
It was like midway, though. It wasn't like a straight up bok choy.
No.
Which would be like, that would really be it if you wanted to go all the way east. But this is like, like the American takeout version of Chinese food, which is just a regular
Beef and
old
broccoli.
broccoli.
It was semi.
And Nicole, do you recall any of this stuff happening?
What?
Like that?
Was this all in his head and you didn't notice that he was just tripping out?
Man, he's always saying so many stories. Like, I don't know. I don't remember.
So do you remember him like waking up in the middle of the night and be like,
No idea.
This broccoli thing. Nicole, help me remember this. Okay,
I'm
so
sure he
this is
told
broccoli.
me. But I don't. He has so many dreams.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick? Because I never
yeah.
really thought about this, but can you talk about how the eyes are upside down on the broccoli, how that came about? Because I know that you struggled for a long time with making a face and deciding on how to animate the broccoli, because it was going to be paper for a while, and then
Wait, you just said upside down. What do you mean?
his eyelids are either
He just
on the
got
bottom-
really heavy.
Oh,
like,
right.
he's like real tired, bro.
Yeah.
He's real. You have real tired eyes. It's just like heavy up top.
Just
Okay.
puffy.
That's all. I actually let Taylor Schaffner design the kind of like look of it. I was so fatigued by the time I got to actually executing the animated broccoli. This project was a grinder. So I get to this point and I'm just like, somebody please help. And I talked to Taylor, and Taylor's like, I used to like do some animation. I think I could help you. I think we could do the animation, because I was like reaching out to all kinds of different people who could help me animate. And
I think you forget something.
What?
That I actually cut out a bunch of little eyeballs for you.
yeah.
Oh, so you did actually go through the test of that sort of thing.
Okay, so let's back up.
Wow.
We'll back up a minute. So originally, Jeremy, you brought this up a second ago. We were kind of looking at a lot of different methods for bringing a piece of broccoli to life, right? We were like, I really wanted to go Sesame Street, like puppet style. That was what I was really excited to do
like a
first.
felt kind of thing.
Mhm. And I looked around, talked to some puppeteers just about the process of it. Realized like I'm gonna put myself into a pickle if I do that, because mind you, this was the first script I had ever written and directed, and I was terrified of just even writing before this.
What?
Yeah, this was the first thing I ever wrote, and this is why the film club was brought to life, is because I realized that myself and my peers, Matt Davino and the other kind of Taylor Schaffner, who had written a few things, like we all weren't writing enough. We were like saying we're going to be directors, but yet we weren't writing enough. Mm-hmm. So I overwrote the script. The script was like written. There's way too many words.
Okay.
And it had I now kind of looking back at it and thinking about wanting to do the puppet thing, had I shot it the way I wrote it and had done it with a puppet moving, I might have had problems, because I couldn't just like animate to my edit anymore.
Yeah.
You have to
Limited.
kinda, you kind of have what it's in camera, right?
Right.
So then we were like, Nicole and I were chatting, and she was like, well, we could do this, like cut out the facial expressions, and we'd just like shoot plates of all the facial expressions we could possibly do with like Robot Chicken style, right? Where it's like a cut out eyes, cut out mouth, shoot that all just on like, like on black, and then just like, or put it on green screen or something, right? And then key out the background placed on top of that piece of broccoli, and you'd have what you want. So that was my default fail-safe fallback option. If I can't find an animator, then we'll just do it. And but then Taylor kind of said, "Hey, I think we can do this." So then I was like, "Cool. Like, you want to just play around and like show me what you come up with?" Because he was like, "Yeah, we can do it," and I'm like, "Yeah, we can do it."
The royal we.
Yeah, we'll do it. And then I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go home and like work on this other thing, and then I'll come back tomorrow. Like, all right, cool, I'll play around, like, and then I come in, he's like already got it dialed in. I'm like, okay, that's great. You did a great job. Instead of, we.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of like supported to get it, like
Right.
I was kind of a soundboarding,
Right.
directing to some regards, but Taylor did most of the kind of like animation work in the end. So
Going back to what you said about the writing, when you said it was too wordy, was it too wordy in terms of the dialogue, or was it too descriptive?
Well, okay, I overwrote Act 2 heavily.
Okay,
and I'm finding this to be a recurring thing in my writing, and something I'm working on now. Is I'll overwrite Act 2, trying to give kind of all this context to like why we're here and what we're working towards.
So it's more descriptive text as opposed to dialogue.
Yeah, it's both, because there's like,
Okay.
it's like the characters are talking to each other, they're like, in Broccoli specifically, I cut out, it was a 12-page script. It ended up being about an 11-minute edit originally, and in the end, it was a 6-minute edit, because I chopped off half of Act 2,
Right.
and then squeezed out some moments in Act 1 and Act 3.
Right.
So, I cut out an entire chunk that really gave context to the relationship dynamic between our actors Cameron and Camilla, Danny and Jess are their character names, and past Jess. We have a past Jess and we have a future Jess, right? So future Jess is in the broccoli, and I realized that it feels like as a viewer that, and I think based on some conversation I've had with viewers, is that they think that past Jess is the main character and is the protagonist. But really the protagonist is future Jess.
Okay.
And they're dealing with the antagonist of themselves.
Okay.
In the form of past Jess.
Right.
And Danny is actually a supporting protagonist. Danny and future Jess want the same thing. Because it's past Jess learning that Danny was right all along. Right. So future Jess comes back and is basically saying like, hey, like listen to Danny because what he's saying is like something you need to really be paying attention to. So, but you know, sometimes yourself is stubborn and you don't listen. So,
yeah. What is in terms of, you said this is the first thing you've ever written. How has, so ever since you've directed two more films, right?
Correct.
And so how has your writing process changed from the first time you wrote that to now how you write? Like, how was your writing process then?
It was very freeform. I just started writing.
Okay.
And, you know, then I brought that script in to the kind of our monthly meeting and pitched it. And there was only a few of us at that time because we were really small. And, you know, it was well received because it was kind of wacky. And then it was like, cool, let's make it. And then I didn't really get any challenge to rewrite. I didn't get no pushback to like, hey, like maybe adjust some things here or whatever. Yeah. It was just like go. And that's great and all, but I've since kind of like realized like I have to challenge myself to do that. And I'm also trying to inspire you guys and our peers to make an effort to challenge me and challenge each other because I think it's necessary. It's like we shouldn't be making a version one. It should take 3 versions to get the script to a place where we're making it. Right.
But how do you feel about shooting, the concept of shooting more than will ultimately end up in the edit, and having more options beforehand, like even when you're writing and being like, I don't know if this is ultimately going to make it, but let's shoot it. And then figure it out in the edit, or I go back and forth because sometimes I'm like, I don't want those options in the edit. I don't want to worry over all that. I want to try to whittle away, as early and as often as I can. But what do you think?
Is your question? Sorry, let me kind of mirror you for a second. Is your question? What do I think in regards to like writing more that I think I need and shooting more, or is it? Yeah,
like I feel like it may have come off as like a negative experience on this one in particular because it was such a laborious thing to get to where you were. And it's funny, like everybody looking at the finished product, like we have no idea like that there was stuff cut out and that it was like one way and that you had to work so much to kind of whittle it down. It just seems like awesome and taut as it is. So it's like, would you rather have like not had that experience because it was so laborious,
I would have much rather written for what ended up, or at least close to, specifically because post-production for me on this, because it was my first written and directed by, I really cared about it. I wanted it to be good. I was like just digging through the quicksand trying to get the edit made and like testing this thing out and then showing it to a friend and then getting some feedback and then testing that feedback out and then doing it again. And it took me over a year to get it.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was like might have been a year plus, like a year and a few months. Man, had I known what I know now, having done 3 shorts now within Assorted Kinds, and I would do it differently. But that's the process. That's
Sure.
I'm super thankful for what I learned in this experience in general. And had I not done it, I wouldn't have learned it.
Yeah.
So, that's my big takeaway from it. Jeremy, what was your like when you first heard the script as the kind of DP coming into it? Like, what was your kind of take on it? Like,
well, I remember, obviously you trying to explain the broccoli, and that's why that was my first question. Is like, wait, what do you mean we're gonna have a broccoli as one of the lead characters? Like, how are we gonna do this? And yeah, you were saying we're gonna do it with puppets. And how? And what are you gonna do? Bring puppeteers on set, and then maybe we'd do some other options. So that was the first hurdle. But then as the cinematographer, having one set, one location is really helpful, because then you can just kind of control everything, paint your environment, and go from there. So it was cool. But that was like the first startling thing, and just trying to wrap my head around, okay, wait, so she comes back from the future. How are we gonna portray that? And I'll leave it up to you. But the styling that you brought forth, and the ideas that you had using color and maybe making everything washed out and really kind of colorful.
When did that sort of stuff come into discussion in pre-production? Was it right off the bat that you knew you wanted that sort of?
Yeah, I was just always seeing this like colorful world that it was taking place in. And I don't know if it's because of what I was inspired by that I was watching, or if it was because of the world that we saw when we were in Japan. I don't really know.
What were you watching at the time?
Dude, I don't know. This is a long time ago.
Reffin movies.
Yeah, I mean, I referenced the mood board I pulled a lot of Nicholas Winding Reffin images, right?
Right.
He colorblind Nicholas. I think Jeremy did a good job of like translating that. I kind of look, we referenced a lot of the fluorescence, and then actually getting the fluorescence was presented itself to be much more difficult than I was hoping for. So there's like 2 small fluorescents that inspire like all the color.
But if you look at it, I'm watching it now actually just to get ideas and stuff. But I've been watching a new show, Euphoria.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
It's very Euphoria-esque. Just big palettes of blues and violets, and the big pieces of the frame are covered in single colors, and it's interesting. It's eye candy in a way.
And then, so Nicole, like, you kind of took this and ran with it, and you saw the mood boards, and you knew, we were looking for locations as well, right? And we kind of landed on shooting at Taylor and Derek's apartment in North Hollywood, just because it was like a blank canvas, right? It was a box. I'm like, well, okay, it's a square. Here we go. What are we going to do? And I mean, I keep getting so much feedback about like, holy crap, the before and after is wild of the actual decor of that space. Like, where did you talk about, like, kind of how you took the idea?
I don't remember what the mood board looked like. There was their apartment, which was filled with nothingness.
Right.
There was a couch, there was a coffee table, TV console, and a kitchen countertop.
Well, there was probably a lot of white walls too, and then you guys.
It was all walls.
Straight covered it with all those posters, which is rad because it made so much texture, and then we were able to add the neon, which helped a lot.
Where'd you get all that wall covering stuff?
Texture on texture on texture. So, since nobody was telling me specifically what to do, I just thought it'd be cool if we got our friends' stuff all in there. So different friends' clothing brands, their stores, their restaurants, their paraphernalia, everything. Old snack house, Chris's old company that he had, the logos on the Chinese take-to-go boxes.
The Video Mouse, you guys remember that?
Oh yeah, Video Mouse, not snack
Yeah,
house.
the Video Mouse.
Yeah.
And
A lot of throwbacks in there.
That's cool though. Yeah, make use of all that stuff. Like you have the opportunity.
Well, the stickers are just sitting around. Need to use them for something.
there's little logos of our friends' brands everywhere.
I was hoping they would repost when we launched it, but I don't.
That's cool.
I don't know.
Synergizing.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
So the all the posters in the background are from this designer. His name's Matt Goldman. He used to throw a party called Dance Right that Nicole and I both went to and did not know each other when we were going to it. And it's like a very kind of nostalgic piece of art in this film that says a lot about like an era. And, some people who see it might get it. Some people probably don't know what it is. But it was cool that, and I reached out to Matt and I just said, hey, dude, I'm like thinking about doing this short film. It's my first kind of push into kind of like narrative filmmaking. And I would love to use kind of a bunch of posters from that party. And I always loved his art. And he was actually I credit him with the kind of launch, the successful launch of the Video Mouse. He was throwing parties and had a bunch of eyeballs on things, and I went and shot one of his parties, did a little video. This is before kind of video was the go-to thing for event promoters. And then he put it in his mailing list, and a bunch of eyeballs gone on it, and I started getting cold calls left and right. And so it was kind of like a homage to that moment in time.
Mm-hmm. The catapult.
Yeah, the catapult.
Launch pad.
Well, like you. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, no, and so we took it to our friend Zeke, who has Mighty Printing, right?
Mm-hmm. And then printed them all out.
Wait, so because normally you like art department has like sometimes a whole day of pre-setting the set, and you guys said that it was like blank. You really had to add everything to it. Did you have time beforehand? Like, speaking of pre-production, did you have time beforehand to set everything up?
Yeah, so
They had to finish all that Chinese food the night before to use the
Amazon
boxes.
Amazon Prime.
Nice.
So I had a full day the day before to dress the set, and then at some point you guys came in and started lighting the set toward the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Evening or
Awesome.
something.
We lit it the night before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So I was just finishing up as they were pre-lighting, and then tweaking as they were pre-lighting also.
That was actually huge. I remember that being a great opportunity for us to
you
get
guys
a jump.
planned out a lot.
Yeah, so that we wouldn't be there too long the shoot day.
Because you had lights outside too, so
Yeah.
it was like a whole thing that was planned.
Yeah.
All right. So when we say we're shooting a 12-page script for Assorted Kinds, we're really like, we're doing some extra stuff in order to be able to shoot a 12-page script in a day. Usually it's like,
but it was effectively
9 pages.
a night scene.
Yeah.
So
But you're
we
shooting
had-
all day during
Yeah,
the
but we
day.
didn't want to go till 6 a.m.
No.
that's
And
right. I didn't even think about that.
Right, so we pre-lit so we could get in there early. She dressed the set so we could get in there early and be ready to shoot. Like, what did we start? Probably 5
soon
o'clock
as-
or 4 o'clock.
Got
As soon as
there,
it started getting
pretty
dark,
much.
we were ready to rock, which was good. And then we still went pretty late, I think till 3, because the apartment had neighbors, if you remember. And we had such limited space that our DIT and our craft service was outside in the hallway.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
Good
There were
times.
limitations.
We shot the broccoli plates all like first, right? Because we could contain that little set,
Yeah.
right? Because it was still light outside. We could darken that out and shoot it like it was the same.
Okay. So every time you're looking down at that broccoli, that's like the very beginning of
Yeah.
the day.
First
Yeah.
shot.
And then by the time we were done with that, the sun had set, and then we just went into it. And we had Darren Nim, who is traditionally a DP and works as a first AC on a lot of big TV shows. He kind of like said, "Oh, I'll first AD for you," because I was like, "Cool, dude! Like, you're always pushing us to like move fast as like you're as a DP or whatever." I was like, "I would love to see what you would do as a first AD, knowing what you want as a first AD,"
Right.
Which then has now inspired me to like play some other roles, so that I can know how that role feels when I'm asking for things.
Right.
And so he was brutal on set.
Yeah, he was the general.
Yeah, go. You gotta go. Like if you like.
Because he was looking at it as if he didn't finish the day, it was his fault.
That's funny.
So he wanted to make sure we got it in the can.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about it later, too. It's like maybe we did too many masters.
Yo, there was way too many masters.
Yeah,
I mean,
talk about that. About your.
Yeah.
I remember when you were in post production, you were talking a lot about your concerns with having too many shots to pick from. Tell us a little bit about your shot selection and pretty much how that.
So we decided to multicam this for the most part.
Oh wow! Okay. How many cameras? Two.
We had 3 at one point. Ooh. There were 3 cameras rolling for something. Like there was like
y'all crazy. It was like that explosion shot where everything exploded and you had to have 3 cameras.
Yeah, and when I think back on it, I'm like, I think it was just because I was worried about time. I knew it was a 12-page script. I'm like, well, if I can get 3 masters in one take, like, cool, right? 3 versions of a master. I knew I didn't want to show the same master every time. I wanted to be able to kind of move around. Yeah. And only when I got into post did I learn why I needed to move around, right? I wanted to show a different master for each of the different acts, right? Each master kind of maybe a little something different. It said a little something different, and I only learned that when I got into the edit, and I didn't shoot it right for that. I just shot it, and so I've now learned like, oh, okay, like why do I want a master in this act to set up this part of the scene? So then getting into post and having so much to work with was. And not having the broccoli was not really written. I mean, it was written on the page, but we didn't have it captured. Right? We had an actor, Mike Morrissey, came in and played the role of the broccoli for Camilla to play off of. Yeah, and and I'm cutting around that, and there was a lot of bleed from that performance. I learned about that the hard way because I had to there's a lot of performance I couldn't use because there's heavy bleed into all the actors' mics from the on-set voice performer.
What did you learn from that? What did you end up having to do?
I only had specific takes I could use because they were talking over each other.
What did you learn to do different?
Just let there be breath between the off-screen performer and the on-screen performer. Okay. You can show facial expression reaction, and then have the delivery, but always give each other the time to have that beat before you start talking over each other.
And that comes down to directing the actors.
Yeah, that's a tough thing that happens, not just for when you have someone reading voiceover. Right. This is anytime you're having singles, where you're just shooting a close-up of a person and you've just done that master that's the 2-shot where they just get to dance all over each other and do it however they want. And now you're asking the actors to change gears in the close-ups to not step over each other but still deliver the same type of performance. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, and Chris and I talked about this too, is just getting a few masters and then really saving it for those quality close-ups, giving the actors the time that they need to be able to hit the mark and nail the important part of the scene and be tight on that and have options to go to in the edit room with a tighter shot.
Well, it's when do you, the big thing I learned was when do you want the close-up? Save the close-up, right? And I only had one performance of each close-up.
Yeah,
and that was a bummer.
Yeah,
I was like, man, because it's you want to get versions of that. That's what you want the versions of. The versions of the master don't matter. You get you show the world and you move in. And so, we had quite a bit of takes of medium close-ups, and then we had a gag shot. We didn't even use the gag shot. The gag shot took forever to shoot. The big push, the big push in on about to tell the story. Oh, yeah. There's a big push in on. I'm about to tell the story, and we winged that. That was a decision. We're oh, it'd be cool to do it. Let's just do it. And we spent 45 minutes on it, and it was a waste because I didn't end up using it.
Cutting room floor.
How did Darren allow you guys to do that?
Darren was losing his fucking mind.
Oh man, you guys just gave him a heart attack. Really, shame on you.
But we're having fun, and
I can't condemn you for trying stuff.
And
it was probably a calculated decision. It just was the wrong one.
Yeah, and unless you really know why you're using that big, it was a dolly push, right? Dana dolly push in on what the character's about to say, which is a totally blow it moment. And the reason I didn't use it is because the timing of it, the land of it was incorrect. It landed too soon, and it needed to wait and then land. And so I just had to kind of go with the standard coverage.
Right.
And what was crazy was that I didn't get enough of the standard coverage to give myself options because I thought I had that dolly shot.
Oh no.
So it's these are all learnings, right? Just know what you want going in, why you want it. What is your intent? If you understand your intent fully and you've done your homework and done your pre-production to fully understand it as a director, then you can go in, you can make the correct decisions with clarity. And you have to fall on your face a few times to understand that that's important. So.
And you'll know which decisions you're going to have to make when the time comes and the time crunch comes and you have to sacrifice certain things.
Yeah.
You'll know an order of importance that...
Yeah, sacrifice the master.
Yeah.
Like...
Get one of those and move on.
Yeah, get one. See, you can't even see what people's mouths are doing in the master.
Yeah, true.
Like, most of the time, you cannot see what the mouth is doing.
Yeah, that's why you use the dialogue from the close-up.
Yeah.
on the master. Just lean into it.
So,
Did you just not to try to reiterate, but did you storyboard for this?
I'm a horrible drawer, illustrator. So my storyboards kind of are just like, I'll go into the space and I'll use Artemis, the little app for capturing set photos and what lenses you want to use and shit. So I went into the space because we had the space. It was Taylor's house, and I just sat Taylor and Derek down into the space and just went through the entire short film and shot it all out.
Yeah.
Kind of with just them sitting on the couch.
Yeah. Shout out to Artemis. We are looking for sponsors.
Yeah,
Artemis is great.
Hook us up.
Really,
You're just so expensive, but
Kevin, you use
great.
CAD Rage, right?
I use CAD Rage similar. That also like puts it all into a PDF so that you can kind of send around.
Nice.
You can put
it is really
notes
nice.
and camera options. But like I've been doing that sort of thing even without an app. Like ever since I first started working on stuff like this, I really feel like we don't have the luxury of making a storyboard that can have the camera anywhere you want it to be and doing whatever you want it to do. And the fact is, like, we only have a limited whatever. So to actually have the camera in your hand and you're limited to say, like, we can't move the camera further back. We can't pull the wall out. We can't crane up this high. Like, it kind of limits you a little bit and helps you stay realistic with what you can actually shoot as opposed to just drawing pie in the sky.
Well, I get kind of like irked a little bit. I do a lot of like commercial marketing content, and I'll get asked sometimes to make a storyboard about an idea, and we haven't even like talked about a location yet.
Yeah.
And like I know that you know that we're limited to locations, and you probably already know the location.
Right.
And you want me to make a storyboard from an idea that's kind of fantasy in my head without seeing the location.
Yeah. FrameForge 3D. I had to do that for a commercial job one time where they actually asked for storyboard, and the same thing. I was like, I don't know what things look like. Luckily, they had sent me photos of the location. So I just used FrameForge, which lets you sort of kind of virtually kind of, even though I didn't know what camera we were using. That was a tough one too, because you don't know like what lens to use and stuff like. So I just kind of had to wing it. But yeah, FrameForge is great. Yeah. I think they still update it consistently. So
okay, FrameForge 3D.
Yeah.
Artemis, CAD Rage. Those are your tools.
Hook us up. Jeremy, any lighting people you want us to
shout out to?
right
What do you
now?
got, buddy?
No, that's Artemis is great. Yeah.
What did you? I mean, before we go on to like post production, where a lot of the craziness happens. Like, what did you guys? You guys said that you only had 2 neon lights. Are you talking about like practicals that you had that you were actually shooting and then you're supplementing everything else?
Yeah, so there's a lot of gels used. So before the shoot, I actually did some camera tests in my office with different colors for Chris to look at and different perspectives, 50 millimeter at 2.8, this, that, and the other on myself.
So what are the lights you're using behind the gels then?
So we used a lot of tungsten lights. We had hot lights. Yeah, we had par cans coming in from outside with cyan on them. And then inside was a 2K, which is, in retrospect, the worst light because it's hot as shit and it's big. But it has a high output.
tiny space.
Yeah, and it's a tiny space, but it had a high output. And we need that because those gels knock down the intensity so much. And it still might not even been enough, Could have used more.
Right.
So, yeah, sent in these colors, and Chris said he liked this and that, and that's kind of what we went off of.
Would you have used anything different either now, a year hence, and or just like with a different budget?
If I could have an unlimited budget, we just use a LED, any kind of multicolor LED where we can just select a color temperature and just go with it. Lightweight, easy to move around, intensity is dimmable, and then no heat.
Right.
Because, when you got 17 people in a fucking living room and then 2K burning, that's old school shit.
Yeah, but it is interesting, though. Like, I know, I don't know if we use anything from wood nickel or whatever, but I go there a lot, and there's places like that have a lot of, like, gel scraps, especially when you're looking at intense colors like that are not, particularly like ubiquitous.
Dude, Expendables recyclers.
You can,
that's a spot.
Yeah, you can get them for really cheap. So it's like you don't have to have the fancy sky panel LEDs or whatever. You can get your tungsten lights from wherever and just get some crazy gels.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We almost set off
Ventilate.
the sprinklers, remember?
Oh,
No, what happened?
We melted because it wasn't one of those, the old school ones. It was like a new one. And so it had this little thing. If the heat got too high, it would melt.
Oh, shit.
And it was melting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they had to like cap it.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been great.
Jumping off of that, can you tell us about some of like the issues you ran into in the location? I know you said that it was an apartment, there was neighbors, but were there any other issues things you would have done differently, different location that you would have picked? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think the location actually, because of Nicole, the location worked out wonderfully. I don't think I could have asked for a better location. So.
Yeah, and the fact that we had it for 2 days was epic.
Yeah.
It was great.
And,
3 days.
3 days.
3 days.
Because the next day I went in and cleaned.
Yeah.
Oh, that helps too. Yeah,
Yeah.
not having to wrap everything out at the end of the night.
And it was pretty secure for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Sound was a bit of an issue because it was right on a busy street, so you could hear. But I knew I was going to be baking that into the sound design in the end. I was going to bake. I wanted to feel like it was in like on a New York City apartment, and
Right.
so when she throws this stuff out the window, it's like throwing it down into an alley down
Right.
below. Right. Hey, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right. That's my voice in the.
No, it worked. It worked pretty good. And I think his roommates were there too, sleeping.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Coming home and going upstairs.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Amazing.
Well, I remember he's got a female roommate. There's like 4 people that live in that house, and a female walked through, and I'm just like, "Hey, what's up?" She walks like, "Oh, okay, hi."
She didn't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
I'm like, Taylor, do you not talk to your roommates? Like, what's the deal?
No, he just like Film LA. He just like posts the thing up there, and like if they look at it, fine. If not, that's their fault.
Puts it on the fridge. He's just like, yeah, note on this day we're doing a thing, but
Yeah.
no one looks at it.
It's your
so-
fault for not asking questions.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the lesson is don't have roommates. If you want to shoot movies, don't have roommates.
Don't have roommates. Yeah.
God, I mean, anything else production-wise before we dive into it?
I
Other
mean,
things to hit.
I really liked all the little just like accents in the backgrounds. I think it would like really made it shine from my perspective. Like just the simple like Christmas lights.
It felt lived in,
Yeah.
which I really like, which a lot of first-time filmmakers don't kind of think about those details, and those details are very important for it to look just complete. You know what I mean? People like rent out great locations, but they don't dress them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just kind of show up with a camera.
Yeah.
And this one felt very lived in. It was very well thought out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we used the Leica Summicron lenses on this. With I always forget. There's the
Summicron C's, yeah.
Yeah, Summicron and Summilux. I forget which one's the faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just curious about those lenses because I've seen them around, but I don't really see people using them too much. And so I remember just seeing, they were on ShareGrid for pretty like inexpensive. It's like, oh, let's try them out.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, okay,
They're
let's
great.
do it.
Shout
And-
out to field. The 75 that's used on the overs is great. It was my favorite lens of the day.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I remember you just saying, it's like, get that 35 millimeter off the camera.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
Not my
don't use
favorite.
that one.
Sorry to anybody who loves 35
Hey,
millimeters.
whatever. But I think between you and Nicole kind of like coming up with those little twinkles in the backgrounds, you guys did a great job.
Yeah.
The other thing, we had the TV moving the whole time. So that was a big, I think Jeremy and I have kind of kicked ourselves a little bit after the fact. Just like, yeah, it's like, we should have used 2. So there was like more and less intense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Less intense, 2 lights would have actually probably done the trick a little bit better.
Yeah.
But
to lead us into post-production, talk about what was playing on the TV.
Okay, so it was a play on time.
Okay.
Was kind of the concept, and also because we couldn't get, it was like, I'm not going to deal with rights to anything in this fucking short film, and so that's why we use like stuff in the background that was like from our friends.
Yeah.
They kind of like signed off on it before we used it, and then everything in the TV was from public domain kind of library footage, but it was also just a play on a kind of like time and space. So all the stuff in the TV was within the public domain space. It was stuff that was about time and the philosophy of time.
Yeah.
And so it was going to be used to say more. But then I was like, I don't want to show the TV really. It's like you just need to know that the TV is inspiring that light moving, and there was like a thing at the end where I was like going to go back to the TV and you would see this kind of like time relativity gag that like kind of like closed it up a little bit.
Right.
But I was like, the audience isn't going to care about that. Like, and I don't really care about it either. So I ditched it at the end. But it was nice to just have that source that was like it was a black and white source, and it kind of like broke up the space a little bit when we had so much pink and blue and magenta and blue. It gave us a kind of a consistently normal white light source, right. And it was moving, right? So it kind of like animated the world a little bit more than what you would have without it. So it was fun. But Matt Davino, who produced it, he kind of like helped me kind of dig into the public domain stuff and find some stuff and managed all that. So
so we've been talking back and forth. I feel like we've been jumping into post-production while we've been talking about production, because we talked a little bit about the creation of the broccoli and like the eyes and stuff like that. Let's talk a little bit about the voice of the broccoli. So where did that decision come from to, the kind of making the voice a little, because we use your voice in it, right?
Yeah. So I ended up going with myself as the broccoli. I had, oh man, what did I do first? Okay, so I did the test originally. I read and kind of like gave the inflection to the broccoli to kind of like sell the kind of panic in the voice of the broccoli.
Yeah.
And then I was just like stuck. I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like, is it gonna, people are just gonna question why does the broccoli sound like you? But you're not Camilla.
Right.
And then I was like, all right. So then I hit up Camilla and was like, hey, Camilla, can we try you as a broccoli? And I was going to pitch it a little differently, right? I really wanted to do the whole like small Beetlejuice head version of the character, right? So it's just like tiny place, right? And then I tried it and it was like too far. Like it was a little too, for an entire 6 minutes, it was like going to be annoying. And so we take Camilla to Kamal's studio in it's not El Segundo, but it's adjacent to El Segundo, like Long Beach or something, somewhere in there.
El Segundo adjacent.
Yeah. And Camilla comes out there and does a full kind of session with me where she kind of plays the broccoli. And then I brought Camilla's performance into the edit and did an entire re-edit with a new performance, timing changes and everything, right? And I'm telling you, this is why it took so long. It's like so many trial and error, right? So many trials and errors. And her performance was great. And then I showed it to a few friends at my house, and there was no reaction the entire film. Like there's no laugh moments, there was no nothing. And I'm like, fuck, man, like what just happened? And then I kind of heard the feedback afterwards. I was like, well, we were kind of lost. I didn't know who was talking, and like the characters sounded very alike. And I even tried, I was like, whoa, and I pitched it in the moment and like played it again, and like still kind of like, yeah, it's not, I don't know. I like it better when you were doing it. And that was the kind of feedback, and I felt it. I knew that was the issue, and it wasn't the performance. It was just like the characters changed. The characters learned so much as a different person, right? You 30 years in the past is not you today. And it needed to really be a different person, just trying to tell themselves that long ago, like, hey, like, just give in. Don't be so stubborn, right? And so I think it needed to feel like different characters. And I pitched my own voice, and it's kind of ambiguous to whether it's a male or female or whatever. And,
yeah, right.
And then,
it's cool that you were like, you made that decision, unlike like Ang Lee, who's like now spending like tens of millions of dollars trying to create a young Will Smith, right? And trying to get that to match, right? A 20-year-old Will Smith and all the technology he's throwing at that, when all he really needed to do is just voice it himself. And so going theme too, like this is like the second time you've mentioned that there's a like thing that the whole thing that you shot and then decided like, nope, it's not going to make it in the edit. And it's interesting, like there's certain people, directors, producers, or even are just like, look, we paid for this thing, we labored over this thing. We're shoehorning in this damn edit, and so it's cool to
So how all three of you guys have directed your own film so far, and you've all probably had an idea going in that changed as the film came out. So how can you eliminate that in the future? Not so much just